Hi, thank you for joining me today. In this video, as with the previous few videos on this channel, I'm going to present you with a paragraph, which I will read aloud to you, and embedded within this paragraph are multiple errors related to, in some cases, syntax, grammar, punctuation, and so on, sometimes some, but not all. After having read the paragraph to you, I will ask that you pause the video and you will reread it yourself. And using a resource or a tool of your own, such as a pen, paper, and so on, please make, or at least try to make, any corrections you're able to identify as best you can. And of course, resume the video as soon as you're ready so that we will correct it together to see if your corrections align with my own. I invite you as well to please use the comment section below if you'd like to challenge some of what I identified as a correction, or perhaps a few examples of what you feel I've missed, or in addition to that, if you feel like I could have augmented it or made it better in some way, please feel free to also include that in the comment section. Okie dokie, I'm going to go ahead and you'll have to excuse me, I've got multiple monitors. I'm going to go ahead and read the paragraph aloud to you. All right, so it reads, despite the length of Cook's expeditions, very few of his men died from scurvy. Cook was able to prevent scurvy in his men by stocking his ships with sauerkraut. Cook forced his men to eat it daily, and he made them eat fresh foods at port stops. At first, some sailors didn't want to follow Cook's dietary rules. It wasn't until 1795, 16 years after Cook's death, that lime juice was issued to all British naval vessels as a result. Scurvy began to disappear among British seamen just as it had with Cook's crews. All right. Now at this point, please pause the video, reread it, or of course you can go back and listen to me read it out loud to you. Make those corrections and resume when you're ready. Okay, if you've resumed, then we can correct together. All right, here we have despite, which the first word in the sentence starts with a capital. That's great. Despite the length of Cook's expedition, please notice that the absence of an apostrophe here indicates we're talking about a plurality of people named Cook. Instead, we're only talking about one, and we want to show that they are in possession of something. And in this case, Cook, being the captain, one of him, is in possession or is in ownership of the expedition. So we're going to indicate that by including an apostrophe just before the S to show ownership in terms of the expeditions. It belongs to him. All right, so despite the length of Cook's expeditions, comma, not a period, because we're continuing the thought, very few of his men died from scurvy. However, because we're continuing the sentence as opposed to full stop, ending it with a period, the next letter in the sentence does not need to be a capital and instead needs to only be lowercase, so we will fix that. Very few of his men died from scurvy, period. Okay, next sentence begins with a capital, and of course it's also, well, not only the beginning of a sentence, but a proper noun. So that, just again, any proper noun should always be capitalized regardless of its position in a sentence. But anyway, Cook was able to prevent scurvy in his men by stocking his ships with sauerkraut. Everything looks good. Cook forced his men to eat it daily, and he made them eat fresh foods at port stops. Now here, it's really more of a style choice. It's kind of user-bound, but I feel it's best to incorporate a pause, indicated by the use of a comma after or before the word and, or before the conjunction and. So here, Cook was able to prevent scurvy in his men by stocking ships with sauerkraut. Cook forced his men to eat it daily, comma. So now we're adding to this point, and he made them eat fresh foods at port stops. Sounds like the end of the clause or the end of the idea, so I'll give it a period. At first, some sailors didn't, and you'll notice here, this is meant to be a contraction of the word did plus not. And whenever you're making a contraction, which is the joining of two words, you want to link it using an apostrophe. And in this case, the apostrophe goes between the N and the T always. All right. It did not want to follow Cook's dietary rules. Well, whose rules are they? They're Cook's. So he is in possession of those dietary rules, as it were, as opposed to a plurality of Cooks, which is how, or rather what is suggested with the absence of that apostrophe. So we'll add the apostrophe to make Cook singular and of course show possession. Dietary rules. So it wasn't, and here again we have a contraction that is missing an apostrophe. Wasn't is the joining of was plus not. We want to, again, make sure to include the apostrophe between the N and the T. It replaces the O in not. So it wasn't until 1795, 16 years after Cook's death. Well, whose death is it? It's Cook's death, apostrophe S, comma, that lime juice was issued to all British naval vessels. We're talking about a multitude. Don't forget as well, British is a proper noun, right? It's I guess a nationality, so you would capitalize it, or the name of a nationality. Naval vessel means one. We are not talking about singular, we're talking about a plurality. And we want to follow that with a period. So notice how it already ended with a period. I'm just going to add that in because I covered it up with my correction. All right. As a result, so we're starting a new clause, starting a new sentence. Unfortunately, it is lowercase, so I'm going to go ahead and correct it by capitalizing it. As a result, scurvy began to disappear among British, again, proper noun, seamen, just as it had with Cook's crew. Well, whose crew? Cook's crew, apostrophe S, and the, crews, excuse me. And that should hopefully conclude it. Let me make sure this is saved. Perfect. It's always a guess. All right. Again, please subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to the channel if you found these types of videos helpful. Give it a like if you can. I would very much appreciate it. Again, on this channel, I do produce content related to the development of the English language, as many practice scenarios as I can. And of course, if you have suggestions as to better practice alternatives than the ones that we just tried, please let me know and I'd be happy to work with you to produce that. All right. Long-winded way of saying thank you for joining me. Subscribe if you can. Please give it a like if you found it helpful. And of course, leave a comment below with suggestions in the future. All right. Have a good day.